Yeah, so please know that the session is being recorded. We would love for all of you to keep your videos on. Please unmute and speak as and when necessary required. Uh, However, if you choose not to be recorded, feel free to keep yourself off camera and on mute. And please update your name on Zoom as you would like it on your CCU certificates. Please ensure the capitalization, the spellings, the middle name, first name, last name, all of it is in the right format. Yeah, otherwise people keep reaching out for updating the certificates and it takes a very long while. If you're renewing your um, PCC, ACC, and if that takes while, you are losing out on a few CCUs. This particular session allows you 1 core competency and zero point 0.5 resource development CCUs. Yeah, with that, let us get started. Um, Atul, thank you for taking time to be here and talk to us. Atul and I have known each other for a very, very long time. He introduced me to Harrison Assessments. He is my teacher on using Harrison Assessment. So he was my go-to person in terms of, looking for who can talk to us about it. And he graciously agreed to it. I've seen him deliver sessions. I've seen him coach. A very calm and composed person. I've never seen him hassled or, in a hurry or any sort of aggression and agitation, nothing, always very calm. So that is what really keeps me connected over all of these years. And Atul, correct me if I'm wrong, it is over 10 years. I think beginning of AN's days is when we started
Oh yeah,
this thing. Yeah.
yeah.
So lovely. A little bit
Okay.
about Atul before we jump into the topic. Atul, I will introduce you, but I would want you to talk through why you chose the topic because I think only you can explain that really,
Hmm.
really well the way we've written. Yeah, a little bit about Atul. Atul has over 20 years of experience in various specializations. He started the first 10 years in business development, learning design, and delivery across various levels in corporates and NGOs. Then another 10 years in business alliance, setting up Harrison Assessment and its business network in SARC and GCC region from scratch. He has worked in global talent development organizations like Franklin Covey, DOOR South Asia, Neuro Leadership Institute, Ken Blanchard, Harrison Assessments India, etc., etc., etc. It's been a pleasure to be in touch with Atul to curate what should we be covering, and very happy for Atul to introduce why he chose this topic in this theme, anatomy of behavior. And with that, I hand it over to you, Atul.
Thanks, Shanti. Pleasure to be here. Hello, everyone. Good to see a big group come in. Shanti has given a sort of a fantastic, roundup of the CV actually. so I wouldn't be able to do further justice to it. Um, the topic is close to my sort of calling, you can say. Uh, Very early on, I've had innumerable examples of why it was very important for me, let us say. And I've seen many people in the L&D have similar kind of logics in terms of what's the untapped potential that we have really, and how do we really leverage that for ourselves and for others also. What is it that needs to be known for us to leverage our complete potential? So the entire focus has always been to understand, sort of explore areas of things which would not have, which are not really in the surface level for us or tangible enough for us to understand and um, understand how it can really help a person. Uh, Primarily focused on to myself in terms of self development, and then really when I understood it can be leveraged in a very great manner for helping others to it really spread like a wildfire for me. So the topic in terms of understanding behaviors was something very close from a very early stage, actually, like that. I'm sure a lot of people who get into L&D and coaching have had similar experiences about this. Very, very fortunately, I came across Harrison assessment around 2008. And at that point in time, career wise, I was finding myself to be at a level where it was not moving forward in terms of really enthusing me to go to office every day. That was the time that I approached them, a lot of push to come to India. And finally, around 2009 October, successfully sort of started the setting up of Harrison assessments in India then. So I'm not your psychology background person at all. My entire understanding of behavior is from a practice level of what works, what does not work. Very, very luckily, I had a great master, the founder of Harrison Assessment, which is Dr. Dan Harrison. A lot of the learnings are coming directly from him, actually. So very, very lucky to have spent time with him. Uh, Anatomy of behavior. I'm sure if I ask a question, how would you? I mean, there are a lot of people over here. What does that topic sort of ring a bell to you, actually, personally? Anybody? What does that? How do you relate to that topic? Anyone?
The term
What?
anatomy takes me back to my 12th grade
Hmm,
biology anatomy of
anatomy.
cat and all. Yeah, so that's the connection. So basically dissecting, breaking it into smaller
Yeah,
sections, regions.
yeah,
That's what anatomy means.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Anybody else?
So could it be like the structure of behavior, understanding the
Could be the
structure of
structure,
behavior?
absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah, thank
So,
you.
oh yeah, somebody's written something on the chat. Behavior is key part of our personality. Yes, absolutely,
Why we behave what we behave.
absolutely. It's a ongoing interest, and I've seen over the years people's what do you call intensity of knowing this has only increased. I would say in the last 10, 15 years, I've seen uh, how people's interest about this field, number one, as well as to know the nitty gritty of this has really shot the rooftop, actually. The intention was through this session to come up with and showcase variety of ways to look at behaviors. So I shortlisted three frameworks. The three frameworks might be known to you in some other form, but these are very important frameworks in terms of simplifying our understanding about behaviors. Okay, that is the reason why these were chosen. If time permits, we will go a little bit into the fourth framework also. It starts at a very basic foundational level, the first framework, and we'll add on to that basically. So the second and the third start to get into a little bit more context specific behaviors basically. That's how we will move. Uh, mm, Time wise, we'll try to allocate about 10, 15 minutes to each framework. We'll take calls, we'll take questions around with respect to each of the framework and see how we are proceeding. If time wise it is not allowing, we'll have to park the question because we'll have to go to the next framework actually. Okay. Some of you have written something on the chat. Can it be a DNA? Yes, we also refer to it as behavioral DNA. We'll see what is behavioral DNA today. Time permits, we'll see what is behavioral DNA today. Dissecting behaviors to understand its constituent elements, absolutely. You just read my mind, actually, Kenneth. The example I was going to take is the periodic table. Like for the material world, you have the periodic table. There is something like that for the behavioral world also. I want to spend time. In fact, before everybody joined, I was trying to understand from Shanti exactly what is expected in such sessions actually. Uh, can we go a little bit deep? So, in which case, I'll try to spend a little bit lesser time on the first framework, which is quite a overarching framework actually. The nitty gritty, to go into the nitty gritty of the first framework will take a lot of time. But second framework onwards, you can start looking at what you refer as behavioral DNA, or dissecting the behaviors can be done very easily. For everyone's information, in Harrison assessments, once a person takes up the Harrison questionnaire, suitability questionnaire, what happens is it gives out a measurement of more than 175 behaviors. Time permitting, we'll look at some of those behaviors. Okay, this is the largest behavioral inventory in terms of a single questionnaire, amounting to those many behavioral data points. Okay, and these many data points are available country-wise also, so you can really see what kinds of behaviors are prevalent in specific countries, which behavior is on the higher side or moderate side or lower side in comparison to some other country. Even that data point is available like that. Okay, let me start. Thanks everyone for joining in, about 40 plus people. And I'm going to share my screen. With respect to asking any queries, you can put your queries either in the chat or raise your hand. I'll take it. Sometimes if I'm in the flow, I might just delay it a bit. So hold on till the concept gets over, the slide gets over. Then I'll probably take the query then. Okay, three foundational frameworks basically. For about Harrison assessments, a bit about it. Founded in 1990 by Dr. Dan Harrison. Luckily, I could spend some time with Dr. Dan Harrison. He's alive and very energetic, sharp mind. You can say amazing mind actually. Harrison, through its partners and direct offices, present in about 70 countries. We are constantly looking out for consulting partners. Like all psychometric tools, there is a heavy emphasis on validity and reliability. So hence, similarly with Harrison. The unique thing with Harrison's is it was built from scratch on workplace performance research, not just personality research, but actual workplace performance research conducted in actual organizations, actual performers. This line you can see in blue. This is what the comprehensiveness of Harrison is aligned to this, that a single questionnaire, if you complete, you would get this entire data set that of 175 traits, 50 plus competencies, a person's potential and suitability to more than 7,000 roles, all of this basically. Really, it's a very convenient platform that way, because one single platform is able to give you so many solutions. About myself, about 20 years in sales, L&D consulting, coaching. Okay, that's the entire focus. Lucky to be in L&D, lucky to be on the development side. It really taps into my calling in terms of number one, the help, as well as leveraging. While you're coaching and helping somebody else, you're of course growing on your own also. So it's like a eternal growth path that anybody on the development side is. Like I said earlier, everyone has untapped potential. What do we do about it? How do we leverage this? How can we know? This has sort of driven me a lot. How do you figure out the untapped potential really? Uh, who are you ought to be, basically? If you have to ask yourself this question, am I what I ought to be? All of us would have had some kind of dream, aspiration uh, through their lives. Some of it may be clearer, some of it might not be clearer as of now. But if all of us still spend some time, think about it, and sort of clarify, what am I ought to be really? What's the design? What's the image that comes to? What are the ideas? What really inspired you to do certain things in life, basically? Entire LND is around this question, to sort of get people to realize what they ought to be and the best version of themselves and get there, basically. While doing that, there are some frameworks that you would have already come across. One of the more known frameworks is the CBT model, that is, feelings leading us to thoughts, thoughts leading us to actions. This is something that is the sort of bedrock of all learnings. Okay, this is the starting point of our sort of getting into the framework. Now we are saying, and this is very commonly used, now we are saying, is there something that comes before feelings also? Okay, you can take any example. You may be expecting some specific kinds of results in, let us say, last week or something. Whether you got those results or not, depending on those, the kind of feelings you have, and then the thoughts, and what do you do about it really? Okay, what we are saying is, in this framework, there is one step up from here, which you can see on the right hand side. That before dabbling into the feelings, the question is, what is really exciting you or giving you the kick or inspiring you for, or your calling, that is really picking the energy in you and driving your feelings, which then influences the thoughts and the actions, basically. The focus is on the first one, the first stage, which is the inspiration bit. That and very relevant to any kind of a L&D scenario, saying, how can we help people to figure out their own inspiration? I'll give you a simple example. I think all of you will be able to relate to this. During the COVID year, usually what happens is, in the morning I go for a walk. Thanks to COVID, that entire walk went for a toss for a long time. I think all of us will be able to relate to that. Lockdowns happened, and then we just stuck to home, and stuck to home means not getting out. And somehow you just become lethargic to even do the basic walking in the morning, like that. I was talking to a coach, and we are simply in the talk. He said, okay, let's solve one problem each. So the problem I stated was, see, I want to go for a walk, but it's simply not inspiring enough. It's just not happening. Something as simple as going for a walk, like that. Discussion led for about 15 minutes. 15 minutes into the conversation, something clicked in the mind for me. And just by the virtue of sharing with this coach, he said, I found, self-recognized, sort of my inspiration to do that back again. This is really start walking back again. This is 2020. Let's say around December. This was around December. Yeah. So you can say about 9 months of no walk. And suddenly this call happened, 15 minutes. Next day onwards, the walking starts. What really happened over there? What really inspired me? Something as simple as walking, which was not happening in the morning. And from then 2020 December, now 2024 March, I'm still walking. What is that happened over there? Have you had any such instance in your life that one snap like that has given some surge of energy, surge of calling, surge of meaning, purpose, and just propelled you into action? Where the scope and the action, everything, just you're not looking at what do you call, what can stop you at that point in time. You are in the mindset of how can I make it happen? Okay. So think about inspiration on those lines, that before you get into feelings and thoughts and actions, what is it that you are really inspired about? Like it says at the bottom, inspiration is about asking that question: are you what you ought to be? Really drives, like, just sort of fires up the entire thought into, are you ought to be X, Y, Z? What is it that you ought to be? What did you dream of? What were the aspirations, like that? So aspirations really is the at the heart of whole lot of development that can happen. Okay. Any questions? Anybody? Okay. You can think about aspirations, a few angles around aspiration. Number one, what is the nature of that happiness or the kick that you get when you are inspired? What are you inspired with? Let's say last week, is there something that happened that inspired you last week? It's just the kick. Is just the what is the inspiration? Is just the opportunity for you to do what you have always wanted to do, or you most prefer to do. I'm using the word prefer over here. If you prefer doing X and you get an opportunity to do it, action on it, is just so that opportunity acts as the trigger, as the inspiration for us, basically. So the question is, what is the nature of that state? What is the nature of that happiness when you are kicked about it and you are actioning it? What is the nature of that? Is it, what is the quality of that happiness? It's a little bit different when you are inspired with something. What role does material incentive play in inspiration? I'm just throwing some questions in terms of for you to think about these things. What is the nature of, what is the impact of material incentives? How much does material incentive drive inspiration? Or is it a secondary factor? Okay. Think about it in terms of what are the factors that enable inspiration for you in your life. Okay. Some factors which disable inspiration in your life. Inspiration can come from anybody, actually. Any thoughts? Anybody wants to share anything? Yes, Arvind.
Great one, Atul, about walking for 22 years. And I was wondering whether there are some midpoint, similar activities that happen midpoint for it to last 22 years. So if I look back at my life, I think every 5 to 7 years something happens and I do something dramatic, and then it kind of goes up and then comes down, and then
Yeah.
something else happens and then I do it. So I was
Yeah.
just wondering, for you it has been a very, very long, though it's an example of just a walk.
It's just
I'm
walk.
sure I'm sure
Yeah.
you're doing it in other ways also. So I was just curious if there is something that you do to, keep on inspiring you, or is the inspiration so strong for it to last that long?
So the question is, what in the morning walk really inspires?
Yeah.
It's just the freshness of the morning walk. Really. I want to experience it every day. It just ups my day. Just that feeling inspires me to just get out and put on the shoes every day, like that. It's a very simple thing, but how is it that a person is doing that for 3 4 years straight? I'm not saying I didn't take a break, but I'm saying even when I took a break, it's still on.
Okay. Thank you.
You
Thanks.
find so many people who are doing this for like 10 years, 20 years. I have example. Yes, Karen.
Yeah, I think Piyush had his hand
Okay,
raised
Piyush.
before.
Sorry, I
Yeah,
didn't see
so
that.
yeah.
Yeah. Piyush, please go ahead.
Yeah, I was just relating it to my values or my deep-seated calling, as you say it. If it can click there, it will trigger me.
Oh, yeah. That will then inspire, act as the inspiration. Yeah. Inspiration can come from any source, any situation. It's really, if you are in development, you really have to understand what's the deeper calling that this person has to, that will really kickstart for a person, basically. Great. Thanks for sharing. Thank
I'd like to actually give a counter thought to it.
Can we,
All
Ruchi,
sure,
can we
yeah,
take the question from Ken and Kundan?
sure.
Yeah. Okay.
So for me, I think I've experienced this idea of inspiration less like a blazing fire and more like an ember that keeps running. And I found that
Hmm.
those pieces that inspire you for a long period of time are
Hmm.
ones that sort of burn like the coal embers. They look,
Hmm.
not too bright from the
Not too
outside,
bright.
but you put your hand into it, you know
Totally able to
exactly
relate.
how hot it is. And so sense I've had is while inspiration can come as a flash of light
Yes.
and can perhaps engulf you entirely at that initial phase,
Yeah.
at least in my experience, I've seen it over time, it needs to find sort of a steady temperature and a steady purpose that it drives one
Absolutely.
towards. And for me, in my own life, I think over the last 15 years or so, me having changed my career from engineering to learning and development and getting into this space, the purpose that it called to me always is the purpose of service.
Hmm.
In being in service of the people who are looking for that input or learning or perspective.
Hmm. Hmm.
And that, while it may fluctuate a little time and again, I found overall it sort of helped me that way. So that sort of then continues to inspire me. And even now, when I walk into a training session or I'm part of a coaching call, it still brings me that same kind of energy that I would
Hmm.
rely on to continue on. Yeah.
Thanks for sharing that. Totally able to sort of connect with that thought. Kundan?
Yeah, hi everyone. I think I don't know. I'm a little emotional here. So I think your question triggered me, Atul, is that what exactly drives the
Hmm.
motivation? For
Hmm.
me, I think there is no as such answer to it. Reason being, what drives me today won't be driving me a
Hmm.
year or two later. It totally depends on the state we are in. So, for
Hmm.
example, if I'm in a survival state, I think materialistic things can survive me.
Hmm.
If I'm in a self-attainment state,
Hmm.
as you say, the thoughts, the feelings.
Hmm.
And many a times, motivation is an excuse. Like biologically, we are lazy machines, right?
Hmm.
We try to save energy. And once we keep talking to ourselves and find excuses, and motivation is one such good excuse.
Hmm.
So I think that's how it works. So if the choice is like materialistic, non-materialistic, I think it's both. Let everything bring whatever works for me.
Hmm. Great. Thanks for sharing. I call the inspiration as the original intention. So my self talk is what's my original intention always. So if I just go back and clarify that in the situations, that it's a far better state than before the clarification.
Yeah, but Atul, just
Yeah.
quickly, your original intention is always with you. It's not
Hmm.
that there is something gone.
Yeah. Yeah.
Motivation is not always with you. You need something more
Yeah.
than your original intention, I'll say.
It provides the ember at least
Absolutely, yes.
that you are clearer why you are doing whatever you are doing.
Right. So it's like I have the gunpowder, but what is the trigger?
Yeah.
And that varies from the
Yeah.
time to shoot
Yeah.
something, right?
Yeah. I find coaching has to be a phenomenal tool to get into conversations of such clarifying original intentions, really.
Yeah, yeah. That's why humans are amazing.
That's
We
the
can
right
find triggers for people.
ideas, right questions, and this sparks it.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks. Yeah, Ruchi.
Thank you for calling my name. I am not sure why the hand raise icon is missing today. I don't want to debug it. I'm familiar with Zoom, but somehow it's not there today.
Okay.
So I actually had a counter to it. I believe in that sense, I agree with Kundan, what he said, in the sense that I believe it's muscle memory. We are creatures of habit after a while. And then it's no longer inspiration, is my take. It starts with inspiration. Yeah. There is an amber, there is a fuel.
Yeah.
But then you brush your teeth, period. There is no thought to whether you need to do it or not need to do it. It just, to sustain something for 20, 30, it's like your muscle memory. It might have a fuel, but it almost becomes your muscle memory. That's partly how I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there would be levels to this. You will graduate to better, higher levels. Level is the wrong word actually. The better word is stages. You would reach out to a higher level of stages in terms of inspiration, which would require certain higher levels of consciousness to start with. The feeding point into the inspiration is consciousness, basically. We'll look at it in the next slide. So it's about looking at variety of stages of it. Some of it will become muscle memory and then you're with it. Maybe the walk has become muscle memory for me. But really every day I am just, every day I go for a walk, I'm still very appreciative of the breeze and the sun and the trees. It just inspires me for tomorrow too. Maybe some of it is like that. So think about inspiration, all these concepts. Think about all these concepts as levels, stages of inspiration, stages of consciousness, basically, like that. Yes. Anybody else? Okay. So going back to the slide, language of the heart is inspiration, really. The heart listens to it. It gives the kick to sort of kickstart the whole day. Now I'm introducing one more aspect to this equation. Before inspiration, what enables, what helps, what makes a person self-realize the inspiration? What is that? It's one concept higher than that, which is consciousness, which is a higher level of awareness. It's not just awareness. It's a higher level of awareness. And it can be in variety of domains. It can be, let us say, so you're talking, let's say, if you talk about behaviorally, then consciousness about your own behaviors. So it really helps and to leverage a person's inspiration. And this is where I'd like to connect it back to what the previous discussion was about muscle memory. Consciousness will help you to arrive at higher stages of inspiration. Without consciousness, it becomes as if you are running against the traffic. It's going to be slow. Higher level of consciousness, you are with the traffic. You're in the flow. Like that. Okay. The question is, conscious about what? What is it that needs to be at a higher level of consciousness?
Before you move ahead, Atul, Kannan has a question. What role do experiences play here?
Consciousness, experience is part of the consciousness also. It's adding up over there. But consciousness is not just experience. It's a far, far higher level of awareness. It's beyond just experiences. Experience, so there are two ways. I'll just explain that in the next slide actually. You can look at consciousness in a a spiritual manner and a non-spiritual manner also. In the spiritual manner, consciousness is absolutely something else. We'll not even go there in this session. It requires a huge understanding of variety of other aspects to come in together. It does add up to consciousness over here. Okay. Consciousness about what? We are still in the first framework right now, everyone. This is the first framework only. Consciousness about what? There are five important aspects in life. We'll call it as aspects. Okay. What is the level of awareness with respect to these 5 aspects in the person? Okay. First is physical, then emotional and relationships. 4th is financial. According to your values, you can rank them as per your requirement. If you ask me, physical will always turn out to be number 1. There's physical or health related aspects, consciousness about variety of things which are impacting or not impacting needs to be on the top. Really drives everything else. A healthy person can be at better level of emotions, better level of relationships, better level of finances. Okay, it all starts with the physical over here. Then the emotional, which is in terms of self-understanding, self-management, both of it coming in on the emotional. Then the relationship, financial. At the center of all of this is the spiritual piece. It's like the binder, really. Spiritual aspect, although we'll not get into it because in itself it is a huge field, but I'm just introducing this so that people who are interested can start the exploration around the spiritual. It's really the binder. You know, there are, when you make certain dishes in the kitchen, there are some binder ingredients which really binds multiple other ingredients into one and keeps it together. A good binder in this is spiritual aspects, right? So hence increasing consciousness in these aspects, and you can choose, and it's a big ask over here, in each of these will lead to you realizing what you ought to be. Okay, it's a awareness that will come. It is a long process. It will come in due with due practice, due interest, due effort only. All of this. My specialty really is in point number 2 and 3 from a behavioral point of view, not or the awareness point of view, not the management point of view. My specialty, my experience is in the domain largely of emotional and how emotional aspects impact certain relationships from an awareness point of view, not how to manage it. I'm not a specialist in the management bit of it yet, like that. I'm not a specialist in any of the other 3 fields. Okay, though I continuously pursue other aspects, especially the spiritual piece has come in this year now, and I can really see the connectedness between emotional and spiritual, no doubt about it, like that. Any questions on this? We are at the end of the first framework right now.
Atul, what this framework is?
Which one? The left one? The left, both of these, yeah. On the right hand one, we call it in Harrison as the whole life. It's called the whole life spheres. Basically, I'll show you a report on this. We have a report on this, and on the left hand side, this is your CBT, which is extended to include consciousness and inspiration. Left framework is called as the CBT framework. You can just Google it. But in CBT framework, you do not have inspiration and consciousness.
Wow.
Okay.
It's a coincidence because I call myself a thought leader, and for me, spirituality, I have done it in the consciousness level. So for me, spirituality is the highest consciousness level.
Yes.
And fortunately, I have divided into 5 pillars. My 5th one was profession. So I have kept profession and finances separately.
Okay.
So I have physical, emotional, relational, financial, and professional.
Okay,
I'm
great.
highly surprised to see the coincidence, but thank you so much. I think we'll
Okay,
have
thanks a lot. Uh,
yeah.
because this is of interest, I think this will be of interest to everybody actually. Well, let me show you one of the reports. In fact, in Harrison assessments, we've got many reports, 40 plus reports are there. But I like this one the best. It's called Whole Life Profile actually. I think although we do not sort of go to market a lot with it because it is very expensive just by default as a product. But have a look. This I think is the most amazing thing that Harrison has. Not, I mean, almost nobody knows about it. So it is a result of a psychometric questionnaire. You finish the questionnaire and are you able to see this, everyone? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. And post the questionnaire, we are able to generate this entire measurement for a person to understand what are the balances and imbalances with respect to each of these aspects. Okay. We can look at just one of these, let us say physical health. And what are the variety of these? Each of these are traits. And the shaded region is aligning to the score that the candidate gets on that trait. Like that. This is just the first page. There's a complete detailing on this. Like that. But personally, I think this is the best that Harrison has, which Harrison absolutely does not go to market with, which is very, very unfortunate actually. Okay, so that brings us to the close of the first framework, basically. The first framework is all about, sorry, we have the last slide. What am I doing? Okay, here you go. So spirituality and consciousness help to integrate and bind all other aspects. So question is, what are the benefits from such an integration? If you have a binder, if you have some ingredient which acts like a binder to all the other aspects or important aspects of your life, what will it get you? What kind of benefits can it get you? Think about that question. Okay. Now, each of these 5 aspects of life are also present in stages. These are also present in stages. So a person has to figure out the stages also. The consciousness has to be increased through the stages. Okay. In this, you've got for each of these aspects, 5 aspects, you have the technical side to it and the behavioral side to it. Okay. For each of these aspects, you've got a technical side of or the know-how of it and the behavioral side, which is the mindset of it. Both have to be taken. Just having the know-how without the mindset is, again, easy example is with respect to the financial. If a person has the know-how but not the mindset of financial health, it's still not going to work. The person has to have both these frameworks, both these knowledge sets, or practice or experience. All of that needs to be there. Hence, it does make sense to get in touch with specialists on any of these, basically. Okay. So this is the end of the first framework. We are at, okay, second framework right now, everyone. Second framework. We'll start with the second framework right now. Second framework has to do with the behaviors, traits, getting into the mindset of things, basically, getting into the behavioral aspect of things. Like the physical world has this periodic table. Imagine a periodic table for the behavioral side of the world or the behavioral world. This is available. There are these many, what you see over here would be 100 plus something. With Harrison's, there are about 175 plus behavioral factors. We'll see, and these are divided into different categories of behaviors. We'll look at those also. But before we do that, I want all of us to get into a short breakout with respect to traits. I've written down 4 traits over here, which will come up now. And I want you to ask yourself, what's your preference for? Sorry, 2 traits. What's your preference for these 2 traits? Read the definition. There's a trait called diplomatic, and there is a definition to it. And there's frank, and there's a definition to it. Ask yourself, how much do you naturally prefer these 2 traits? And 10, so it's going to be in a scale of 1 to 10. 10 means highly preferred, most preferred. 1 means least preference. So would you like to score yourself? Score yourself on these 2. Before you score, read the definition very carefully.
Atul, may I ask a question here?
Yes, please.
When you're saying, how do I prefer it? Is it me doing it to others or others doing
Yes.
it?
You are going to score yourself, your own preference.
No, preference in which way? For me, my behavior towards others or others' behavior towards me?
Good question. Your behavior to others.
Okay, thanks.
It's your preference for it to execute this.
Okay.
What's your preference?
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah.
Is it desired or is it what we actually have?
Desire.
Okay. See.
The words that will come to your mind are desire, willingness, tendency, preference. These 4 or 5 words will come to your mind, which you can align to this.
How much time, Atul?
Come again? Take
How
1
much
minute.
time?
Just
1
take
minute.
1 minute and conclude on what's your preference, the score on your preference.
This is not the breakout activity.
This is right now a breakout, but after I just explain it, basically. Okay. And in the breakout, you have to share 5 strong reasons why this trait is preferred by you. If you can't think of 5, don't worry. Just give 2. But think deeply. And like you know, as with coaching, a lot of things happen when you narrate it, describe it. Okay. You can take a snapshot of this slide, everyone, so that it's handy for you in the breakout. The breakout will be for 7 minutes. We'll have 3 people in each room. Okay. Any questions for me on this? You could take a photograph, right? Okay. We are simply getting you readied for the next framework. This is not the framework that I've shared. I'm simply making you conducive to get into the next framework. Okay. We get into a breakout right now. Okay.
Just so you know,
Atul, can you just put it up for a minute more, please?
Yes, please.
While Atul is putting it up,
I
some
just shared it
rooms
in the
will
chat
have,
for everyone.
Okay, great.
will have more than 3 people. Some of the rooms have 4 people too.
Thank you.
Yes.
Do we need to score for both?
No,
Right?
just score for yourself. Just score for yourself.
No. I mean, score for myself against those 2
Both the
traits.
traits. Both the traits.
Okay, right.
Both the traits. Okay, should we start? 7 minutes, everyone. Few people in the room, in each room, 3 or 4. The purpose is to think about why do you prefer? Why is this important for you? Suppose you have a high preference for one of them. Focus on that only. Suppose out of the diplomatic of rank, you have a high preference. You can just simply focus on one and simply think about why is this valuable to you? Okay, where is this coming from? What is the reason? What's your life reason for it? Okay, we'll start now. Shanti.
Okay, Atul, I'm not able to move you out of a room. Just don't accept the room, yeah?
Okay.
Room's opening now. Just checking if all rooms have people. Kundan, are you having any issues? All rooms have at least 2 people.
Okay.
So we are good.
Yeah. How are we going, Shanti?
Very good, very good. We may have a little less time.
Yeah.
Let's see. Me and the weather don't seem to be getting along. When I switch off the AC, I feel warm. When I switch it on, I feel cold. Every 5 minutes, I'm toggling.
So 7 minutes will keep it.
Yeah. At about 5 minutes, I'll ping them.
Yes.
Send them all the broadcast message about
Okay.
time.
Are we done with 6 minutes already?
Mm.
Okay.
Close the rooms. It will take about a
Yeah.
minute for them to. They should all be coming back now.
Okay. Everyone's in? Okay. Welcome back. Any insights, anybody? You can raise your hand. The insight can be with respect to what you realized or what you're feeling, both, either of those. When you were discussing this, anybody? Yeah, Vanita. You're on mute.
Yeah, I realized I was just explaining that I would prefer diplomacy more than frankness. So I was just pondering on that, and I realized like it is because of some things like wherein at a younger age I've been quite outspoken and quite frank, and it hasn't helped me in any way. So that and I have actually it has taken effort to cultivate some kind of diplomacy. So yeah, so that is the reason why I kind of gave uh, diplomacy a higher number than
Okay.
frankness. So,
Okay. Great. Thanks. Anybody else? Yeah, Sarah.
Yeah, and thank you for bringing this up. I brought up specifically that this is dependent on which culture you're faced. I'm an expert on intercultural communication, and what is perceived diplomatic in one culture can be very direct in another culture. So I was giving the example, if I'm Belgian myself, and if I'm speaking to somebody from the Netherlands, they are very, very direct, which is perceived rude to us, but they think of themselves being very diplomatic. So when I come to India, I see so many diplomatic ways of saying things that I'm learning so much from it. I myself like what the person before said, in childhood has been told not to speak what your truth, right? So a lot of oppression is there. And I think I don't see both to be polarized. I think they can be combined very nicely. And it's a skill you can learn, but you can be very direct in a very diplomatic way. And it's the ideal that I'm trying to achieve. And I see it very beautiful in the Indian communication, but very difficult.
Great. Thanks for sharing that. In fact, Harrison measures both the aspects and it is able to showcase the relationship and the interplay between both the aspects.
Yeah, Atul, that was exactly my point. Is like most of the time, either we are diplomatically frank or frankly diplomatic. Cannot be one.
Yeah. Cannot be one. You'll run into people who are only singularly one.
But okay, yeah, sorry. Sorry, so in our group, what happened was many a times, the way we have been brought up, the social context is that being diplomatic means being decisive or, deceiving somebody. If you just take that away, because you've got to be tactful, and I can tell you frankly that, hey, I'm being tactful to you, I'm being thoughtful to you. Life is non-absolute. So this is what we discussed, and
Okay. A key point related to what Sarah shared. What is the difference between a cultural nicety and a behavior? Think about it. Need not answer it. Okay. Think about it. Is a culture predisposed to look diplomatic? Can happen. Go to some countries, you will say, you meet 100 people on the road, you say, damn, 100 out of 100 are diplomatic. How is it possible? They are predisposed culturally to be in a certain way which your eyes are catching. You are defining it as diplomatic. Okay. And if you look at their scores, all those 100 people, they'll be across the board from 1 to 10. So don't let what you see sometimes deceive you. It's very important with behaviors. You have to give enough number of instances to make up your mind. Like that. If you're only dependent on your understanding, what's available to you as in terms of what you can see and hear, and look at the body language. Yeah. Or else then you say, no, I want a behavioral DNA of this person. That's the other choice. Yes, Ken.
Yeah, I think when you were calling out the fact that there was someone who shared that they can be diplomatically frank or frankly diplomatic, and you said there's perhaps one or the other. I sort of felt immediately that way as I sort of looked at both these aspects. I always saw it as an either or. And sharing it to the group as well, that the kind of field that I'm in, I constantly need to call out things that others may not like to hear. Call out the uncomfortable truths in the profession that I'm in as an L&D person, and it tends to ruffle feathers. And my own belief system and my culture, I think my spirituality does guide that in a big way. That I see my role more as someone who's trying to nurture a person, and you can't do that by jolting them constantly. So if they feel that they are being challenged or they're being pushed beyond their comfort space, without providing a safe environment to push them beyond that comfort space, it can result in a situation where they will reject the whole idea altogether. And it sort of defeats my purpose. That's, of course, my own thinking. I realize that a lot of that conditioning comes from how I've been brought up, the kind of cultural background I've had, all of that.
Yeah. Imagine if this much insight can come out of 2 traits. What can you do with 175? What I'm saying, yeah.
So one of the things I said in my group, and I kind of in that sense disagree with Kenneth, is that I think you can be frank and diplomatic both. Somehow frankness is about clarity, it's about truth, it's about data and information. That's how I see it. And diplomacy is about the style. and the tact. And I think blending the two is what makes you really a great, masterful communicator. That's how I see it. I'm just
Yeah. Okay. Imagine that the amount of permutations and combinations that can be known if you have the data set itself is large. Yeah. I'm taking you to one of the Harrison reports right now. It's called as Traits and Definitions report. You can see on the screen, everyone. Can you see it?
Yes, Atul, we can.
Okay. We use this for a lot. Every developmental intervention most likely will include this report. The Traits and Definitions report includes the candidates' scores for 100 plus traits. Looks a little bit like a blood report. Okay. This is the data set we are dipping into, using it for development, using it for coaching. You can see diplomatic over here. This is a sample report. Each trait is scored on a scale of 1 to 10. Anything above 7.5 is considered high score. High score means high preference. Okay. If you're dabbling with so much data, be ready to see all kinds of combinations, all kinds, anything. You should be expecting a surprise actually when you look at this level of data point. Let's say Frank over here. So the one key thing is with Harrison's, it measures variety of behaviors, not just traits, but other behavioral categories, like for example, engagement factors. These are task preferences, what kinds of tasks, interests, work environment preferences, behavioral competence, whole lot of things. But I want to jump to the framework 4 right now, because that's where your interest is peaked, where we are saying, can these two traits, frank and diplomatic, how can they coexist? Is it possible that they are coexisting? If you pick up your own scores on frank and diplomatic, what I'm showing you right now is one of the key technologies which are part of Harrison assessment, and it amounts to a report also called as the paradox report. The paradox report is all about understanding the interplay of paradox traits. Paradox traits are seemingly opposite traits, but when they come together, it gets to a higher level of effectiveness for everybody. Okay. By common sense and in actual life experience, you will see that people who have the interplay in balance of these two traits or any other trait are more effective by default. Let's look at it. Okay. This is a very, very interesting thing that I'm showing you. 4 scenarios. Each is a new combination trait. Till right now, we were talking about 2 traits. Okay. What we refer to as 2 primary traits. Okay. Frank and diplomatic. When you look at the combination of these two, you look at combination traits right now. The first scenario is where a person has a high preference for both. For both these, the person is highly preferring. To a mind which is not exposed to this kind of a huge data set of behaviors, this scenario can seem challenging to imagine also actually. But in actual experience, you will come across people who are able to manage communication style which is very even keel, fantastically balancing between frank and diplomatic, fantastically, to the extent that one word can be frank and the second word can be diplomatic. It'll be so fine. Okay. The technical term for this state is written at the bottom. It's called as balanced versatility. Both the opposite traits are in balance and they are in high balance. And because of high balance, it amounts to a certain amount of versatility in that competency. The important aspect over here is that this person is able to do both, or either or two. This advantage of either or is not available with somebody who's not highly balanced. But over here, the person is able to do both simultaneously at the, by the second can change, by the second realizes what is the communication requirement, and makes those changes. It's very comfortable doing it. It does not stresses this person out. Second scenario. Third, fourth, all scenarios are. Second scenario is where the person has lower preference for both. Neither the person prefers to be frank, neither the person prefers to be diplomatic. Okay. Overall, in terms of communication, the person is sort of, it will feel to the other person that he's withdrawing himself. It's not that this person cannot communicate, or if the person has any language proficiency issue. No. In the second state, which is balanced efficiency, where frank and diplomatic both are on the lower preference, the person's preference is low. Does not mean the person cannot do it. Can do it, but prefers to withdraw. Okay. Third scenario, where the person has a very high level of preference for frank, but not for diplomatic. This state is called as aggressive imbalance. Okay. And the last one, the person has high preference for diplomacy, but not frankness. So such polar opposite behaviors getting measured and coming together in the same sort of relation or same equation, amounting to what? When you put it up as a XY axis like this, imagine what you can do. So there are advantages to each of these traits. Both these traits have their own advantages. But when they interact with each other, you get to a higher level. A person who can do both obviously would be able to communicate with far larger sets of people, far more kinds of situations effectively, and even under stress, this person would be able to have an even keel in terms of even style of communication, unwavering, non-whimsical style of communication, even under stress, when the person has a high score on both. Ideal state is where the person has both on the higher preference. Okay. And the person can be anywhere. You will meet people who are anywhere on any of these four quadrants. A can be somebody who is very highly preferring to be straightforward, to the point. Why the preference? Because the person is living his value over there. He gets an opportunity to live his value over there. That interaction inspires this person. That kind of interaction inspires. If you are going to put A in a scenario where he is not able to speak his mind, it's not going to be an inspiring situation for this person. It's going to be very frustrating. B is very high on diplomatic, has very high level of preference for diplomacy, not frankness. So each scenario has its own pros and cons. You can very readily imagine, this is really common sense. At A or B or C or D, wherever you can be on this graph, there are pros and cons. So this is where we are going towards the concept of behavioral DNA right now. The intricacies of behavioral DNA. So it is unique to you. There can be a person who's right in between, has a moderate preference of rank and diplomacy. Very unique. Can happen. Okay. When A and B meet, what happens? How does A view? What is A's view of B? What is B's view of A? You know the answers. I mean, this is really common sense. How each of these people are going to view the person who has exact opposite preference. Hence, how do you manage this kind of situation? Okay. Then you can have a scenario which is D, where the person has a high preference for both. Any questions, anybody? We use this data point for a lot of development and coaching, actually, to see where the person, what kind of interplay is happening really, with variety of paradox traits. Each of these quadrants are called out right now. The name that is given in the quadrant is the name of the combination trait. It's not a singular trait. For example, bottom right hand side, evasive. Evasive is a combination trait of high diplomacy, low frankness. Forthright diplomacy is a combination trait of high diplomacy, high frankness. So that's how it goes. Okay. So the discussion that I heard right now, just before this, is sort of, we are seeing this come alive right now. And our life journey is this only, that wherever we are trying to strike a balance. In our lifetime, that's what we do. Conceptually, if you just sort of zoom out and look at the lifespan, what an individual is doing through his or her experiences is trying to figure out how to strike a balance between paradoxically opposite states, paradoxically opposite behaviors. So wherever you are right now, all of us are traveling to better balances. All of us. It may take some years, like 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, for us to arrive at better states. Yeah. What do you mean? Sarah is asking, is this giving a 360 view as well, as otherwise it is pure dependent on how we think we are? So the reports that in Harrison assessment are self-assessment only. Of course, when you do a self-assessment, it's very important to have validation checks on it. That what is the quality of input that the candidate has given into the questionnaire. That is very, very important aspect of any kind of a psychometric. They should be able to give you an input about it. With respect to Harrison's, what you have is a reliability score. Every report, you can see the report that I previously showed you. This is the first page. Every report, on the extreme left-hand side, there is a reliability score. This reliability score is very important. This needs to be above 80% for us to take the data into consideration. Else we drop it, we say ask the candidate to retake the questionnaire. The reliability score is arrived at by the Harrison server. It's not a manual process, it's a automated AI-driven process, which is calculating at least 2 to 3 lakh calculations while you are taking the questionnaire. So it is an important check over here. Okay. The framework that I showed you right now is called as the paradox framework. Okay. And this is the report. Sorry. Hello. Hello.
Yeah, we can see
We
it.
can hear you. Yeah.
Oh, you can
We
hear
can
me?
hear you,
see
we
it,
can
Atul.
see it.
Okay, fine. 1 second.
Now something else is there.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I had a question, Atul, about
Yes, yes. I'll just complete it in 10 seconds. This, I'm just showing you the report where all of this resides. The paradox framework is one of the frameworks I wanted to share today is the fourth framework. So we jump directly into it right now. It is residing in this report called as the paradox report. Extremely deep, lot of insights with respect to paradox traits, strengths, areas of development, blind spots, normal state behaviors, stress state behaviors. All of that is known. The graph we spoke about is called as respectful candor. That you get the competency of respectful candor if you are able to successfully manage the balance between frank and diplomacy. It's a key graph with respect to interpersonal communication and relationships. Yes, question please.
Yeah. So in every case, there is I saw on a scale of 3 on the horizontal and the vertical. Beyond that seems to be that other zone. There is a zone where you have a good combination, and that zone starts at
Yes.
score of 3. Is that correct?
No, it starts at 5 onwards. 5 onwards, you start getting into the top right hand quadrant actually. Although the ideal scores are 7 and above. Okay. Now,
Yeah.
what do you mean by ideal? Now, we can define ideal in the context of a role also. So, suppose you are a coach. Okay. In the context of a coach, what is ideal? We can define that. In the context of a specific grade of, let's say, leadership cadre, we can define that. If it is in the sales, what is it that that is required? If you are in the CXO level, what is the ideal balance mix? Okay, that is also possible. Role specific balance requirement, like that. Interesting, everyone.
Very interesting.
Like that. So, any questions for me? Okay.
None that I can see in the chat. Yeah.
Okay, fine. Done. So that was the second framework. We'll call this as the paradox framework. Since we skipped and got into paradox, we're just retracting right now, get into the second framework that we had in mind initially. That is to do with really clarifying what is a trait. We use the word very frequently. What exactly is a trait? That is what the clarification is. And when you start using behaviors in the context of an organizational application, what is a framework to keep in mind? When you start using behavioral measures or behavioral inputs in the context of an organization, what is the framework that you have to keep in mind? There are two frameworks over there, basically. So sharing that. Should we go ahead? Any questions? Anybody? Are we late or just 2 minutes more? Okay, fine. Is it okay we take another 15 minutes?
Some may have to leave.
Some may have to leave. Please, feel free, please. Okay. So, looking at the third framework now, what is a trait? What exactly is a trait? What are we measuring? If Harrison is able to give you your score for a variety of traits, what does that actually mean? The score is for what exactly? There is a background noise. I think somebody's. Okay, if you can mute. Okay. Okay, you can see my screen, right, everyone? Okay. To understand what is a trait, we have to sort of go a little bit back. What happens before a trait is formed, basically? We'll start with the impulse. Impulse is simply based on any kind of a trigger. What's your immediate reaction? What's at the top of your mind? What's your impulsive reaction? Okay, this can happen very fast. The good part about it is it's fast. Sometimes it can make the difference between life and death. So impulsive action to that extent. But with respect to very highly complex kind of situations, you do not want to get into impulsive reactions. For example, if you have to buy a insurance policy, would you want to get into an impulsive mindset and decide about it? No. Okay, it has its pros and cons. When anybody completes their Harrison questionnaire, what are we really measuring? Are we measuring their impulsive reactions? No, we are not measuring their impulsive reactions. Okay, this is not where the measurement is at. Further from an impulse gets to a mood. Impulsively, I may or you may be taken over by a certain kind of a feeling, and it may be good or it may be positive or negative, and it may reside in your mind for a certain point of time. Okay, that is the mood. For example, if something happens in the morning and the mood is put off, it extends. That sourness has certain kind of effect. Although you are coming out of it with time, the mood has set in over there. It goes out after a point in time. So the difference over here is between impulse and mood is how the amount of time it deliberates inside of you. Okay, that is the mood piece. Third is the temperament. If a person is continuously in a certain kind of a mood, continuously, the person turns out to be a certain temperament. The mood can be good, bad, ugly due to a variety of reasons. It can be any of those 5 aspects: health, emotions, relations, finances, spirituality. Any of those reasons can be temperament. But are we in Harrison measuring your mood and temperament? No, not over here. Over a period of time, what happens is behavioral habits set in, behavioral tendencies and preferences set in. That is exactly where Harrison measures. What are your natural tendencies, natural behavioral tendencies, habits, preferences, natural preferences? So as a person, we say you are an accumulation of tendencies, basically. Okay, the measurement happens over here. These are very deep-seated. It has a legacy effect, sort of. It builds over time. Hence, it is hard to undo also. Okay. Now, interesting element I have added in this slide right now, which is coming up next, is this reality. It may so happen that a person's preference may be X, but the reality or the situation that the person is in demands that the person does not exhibit that X preference. In fact, it can also demand the person exhibit exactly opposite of that preference, what he has. Example, a person may be high on frank and not diplomatic, suppose. But there might be a situation where the exact opposite of that is required. The person is required to be highly diplomatic. Not only that, the person is required to be very low on frankness. So this kind of a discrepancy, let it not fool you ever. The person's natural preference is different, but a situational, what you are seeing, observation can be different. It is very easy to get fooled by this aspect. Okay. The assessment that happens is of the natural tendencies as well as how the person will behave under stressful situation. In Harrison, the assessment happens for both the scenarios. Naturally, how this person is, and if the person is put in exactly opposite kind of a requirement, situational requirement, then what the behavior would look like. Both get measured over here. So a trait is a tendency. The easiest way to describe a trait is, what is a trait? It's a tendency. Okay, tendency about what, of what, It can be n number of things. How many tendencies can a human have? Thousands of tendencies can be there. How many tendencies can there be in a person? There can be actually thousands of tendencies. Think about this. If Harrison is able to measure 175 traits, do a permutation and combination of it. 175 to the power of 175. That many tendencies, possibilities are there. Okay. So tendencies can be many. The problem is not with how many tendencies are there actually, but defining the scope in which you have to focus on. You have to not necessarily look at all the tendencies. You have to first define your scope. If the scope is in the context of a specific competency or a specific role or a specific application, we look at those scopes and then say, not 175 traits are required to be known. A specific set of 20 is enough. I'll give you an example of this. Any questions over here? Anybody? Okay. Okay. Since everybody is a specialist in this competency, I'm going to take this example. Coaching can be a behavioral competency too. Like I said earlier, every role has a technical aspect and a non-technical or behavioral aspect, both the skill set and the mindset. If you are certified through ICF, you have the skill set of it. Okay, this is the mindset aspect, what I'm showing you right now. With respect to coaching, and that is a scope we have defined, and there's a definition that tendency to effectively facilitate development of others one-to-one. This is a very specific competence. We are looking at the mindset of this, and we are looking whether the person has the suitability. Okay, but more importantly, which out of the 175 traits align to this competency? Those get divided as essential, which are absolutely critical for top performance as a coach. Then there's the first category of traits. Then you have the second category of traits, which are the desirable ones, not critical, desirable, nice to have. And the third category is which are the traits which will actually derail, traits to avoid with respect to this competency or with respect to top performance in this competency. So very important to always figure out the scope of the behavior, the application will determine the scope of it. And then you say, okay, this competency or that role for coaching or not coaching or whatever the application be, like that. Okay. Any questions for me? Anybody? Okay. Now, if you're looking at traits, we looked at traits over here. If you want to understand traits, yes, there's a question. Thanks for a wonderful session, Kanan. Thank you. Okay. We'll be able to share this. Yes. Okay. With respect to traits, if somebody says, can you describe what do you mean by behaviors and traits? Then you would get into a discussion which is around preferences only. What does the person prefer or not prefer? So the next framework that I'm sharing is in the context of preferences, basically. When you apply behavioral inputs to organizational applications, this is the foundational framework that would be required. It's called as the enjoyment performance theory. Okay. If we reconnect it to the previous example of frank and diplomatic, you try to think about the trait that you have a high preference for. Let us say frank or diplomatic, and you're saying, I really prefer this. Ask yourself, if a person has a very high level of preference for a trait, for a specific kind of behavior or certain task, what happens when the person is actually doing it. What are the series of things that may happen if the person gets an opportunity to execute it, to express it. So if a person is really preferring to be frank, and the opportunity is there to express frankly, what happens with this person? Basically, intuitively, this is exactly what is happening. Whatever we enjoy, we will do it again and again. We'll repeat it. We'll do it often. Whenever we do things again and again, we are at an improved state of competency on it. Okay. Whatever we are improved at in comparison to somebody else who did not repeat it as many times, then the improved level of competency leads to better feedbacks, rewards, and recognition, which in turn leads you to enjoy that activity or behavior even more. Hence, exactly this sequence of things will happen with respect to all the behaviors that you have a higher preference for. All high preference behaviors will align to this. Organization, what is the organizational application of? Organizational application is people who are more suited behaviorally to a certain kind of task or work. They are more aligned to repeating it, doing it more often. Their own productivity being on the higher side, they are at an improved level of competency. Get you more than what you have asked for. It will come to them naturally. They do not consider this work as simply work then, because they simply enjoy that work. That is the organizational application of this. So people are likely to repeat behaviors that they enjoy. When they repeat an activity, they tend to get better at it. And people who do something well tend to get positive feedback and positive self-esteem, making them enjoy that activity even more. This is the organizational application of this. When you start applying behaviors to organizational applications, people who enjoy at least 75% of their work are approximately 3 times more likely to succeed in that work than people who enjoy less than 75% of the work. So this is the third framework we're talking about right now. Okay, I'll quickly finish this. Each action creates impressions in the mind, which in turn becomes the cause for further action, as it's human nature to repeat actions that provide joy or pleasure and avoid those that bring pain. Over time, these impressions strengthen, leading to desire or aversion, and become the cause for further action. So cause and effect in play, basically. Okay. On this framework, this is the last slide. The opposite of this, on things that you do not enjoy, what happens to those? Things that you do not, the activities or behaviors that you are not really preferring, what happens over there? You avoid it. Not doing it. For example, I heard somebody say, I do not enjoy being frank as much. Fine. You may have your reasons. The question is, what do you do due to it? You avoid it. Because you avoid it, you fail to pick up the skills around it. And then the competency required to exhibit that specific behavior is on the lower side, hence eliciting negative feedback. In the situation that you are required to be frank, you're not, you're avoiding it, then hence this entire cycle comes to play. So this aligns very well with the entire data that Harrison is able to come out with. So we have very clear view of what are the higher preferences, moderate preferences, lower preferences, like that. Any question for me?
So how do these show in the report, Atul?
Oh, how does it show in the report? It shows up as traits, actually. One second. The basic foundational report is traits and definitions. This is very, very important report. In fact, any of you are interested, we will be more than happy to debrief for you. traits and definitions, you can see these reports, scores over here. So the traits on the left hand side, the score, and then the description. It goes on. This will happen for about 100 plus traits, goes on. And similarly for competencies too, the one I showed you for coaching. This is context specific traits now. The context can be a competency, the context can be a role too, like that. So there are innumerable competencies which are available. You can see over here. And come to the first page. We call this as master competency list. You have multiple competencies. Overall 60 plus competencies are already plug and play. So we can generate any of these. Like that. I can take some questions and we can wrap it. We'll sort of close it at the third framework itself. I think we already delayed, so.
Yeah, it did.
I can take questions. Anybody?
Yeah. So I think partly you answered it by the last thing you shared, which was to understand how these traits sort of map out into the competencies. Because I think in terms of work with organizations, it would require us to look at specific competencies.
Absolutely.
I think that part got answered. But I was also looking to understand if through Harrison assessments, you'll also do, is there a work done also around, say, specific roles which require a set of traits? They may not have competencies in place.
Yes.
Is there then a need to fill that gap in terms of saying, okay, for this particular role, maybe a new role that is not part of our library, we then pick up the traits that are important for you within this role and look at meaningful combinations of those traits to then define what are the competencies?
Yes. So to start with, in Harrison's, we do have the algorithm already in place for top performance behaviors for 7,000 plus roles. Okay, 7,000. So you are looking at a platform which is any role that you can throw at it in about 24 industries and functions. These are already in place. Very rarely, I would say 99% of the time, it will so happen that what the client has in mind with respect to a role, that role is already present. We may be simply calling it by a different name. That's all. Yeah. So hence 99% of the time, it will not be starting from scratch. Customization is possible, hence we look at the JD and have a discussion to understand where are the really KPI weightages and do customization as required. Wherever we see that these are quite new, absolutely new kind of a role, which is pretty rare, we take the closest mapped role, which is close to more than 50% mapping is available. That we choose that as the base template and then customize that.
Okay.
Yeah. These I'm showing you the entire here you go. Can you see all the industries and functions? Hello?
Yeah, we can see, Atul.
Yeah, we can.
Yes,
Yeah, I
can
think
see.
people are busy reading.
Oh, okay,
what you're
okay.
showing, yeah.
Sorry. So my system has gotten a little bit slow.
So Atul, you were saying there is overlap or connection with MBTI and I5 and others. Is that because it's a trait-based theory?
It's not an overlap. What we are meaning is there is a very strong correlation.
Correlation.
Yeah, very strong correlation. Why is the need for proving the correlation? it's not that Harrison really needs to prove its correlation, but it is appreciated in the market that some of the sort of older psychometric platforms, because by virtue of the amount of research that they have already done, can you piggyback on that research and then say that what MBTI calls as extrovert, Harrison calls that as, let's say, outgoing and this and that. And whenever a person has a high score on extrovert, Harrison's trait scores, these 3-4 traits are also high. So there is a strong correlation between two psychometric tools. So that kind of a correlation work has been done already, and it's very strongly come out. We can share the technical manual with you where this data is available.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah. Like that. There are many reports. Actually, there are about 40 reports. What I've shown you is 2 or 3. If anyone is interested, we can just take you through. Yes. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Is there a way to reach to you or talk to you?
Come again?
Is there a way to talk to you or reach to you offline?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Shanti, would you like to share in the mail with everyone?
Yeah, sure. If you can send me a slider, and I will send it along with the recording email, your contact details.
Done. Like that. Any
Thanks,
interesting
everyone.
questions? Yeah. Okay, fine. We're at it.
We will wrap up, and thank you so much, Atul.
Thank you.
Despite we being 20 minutes late, I think people have stayed on. Shows the how you've kept the audience captivated. Thank you so much. Thank you, audience, for staying along and making most of the session. Looking forward to seeing you in
Thanks,
another
everyone.
couple of weeks. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Atul.
Thank you, Sushma.
It was a great session. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Ken.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much.